before I say anything about Assassin's Creed Rogue, how do you feel about Assassin's Creed Rogue?
I'm obviously not as excited for it as I am for Unity. I'm fine in the sense that I'm fortunate enough to have still my PS3 and my PS4, but I'm very concerned by people who are probably turning in their last gen consoles to play Unity, and then, you know, 2 weeks later, here's Rogue. So, I mean, it's wrapping out the Haytham trilogy, I guess. So, from a story perspective, I guess I need to go and see how that wraps up. But it's if it had come out 2 weeks before and could build up my hype to Unity, I think I'd be far more intrigued by it. But the fact that it's going to be just like sitting on my table waiting for me to finish Unity before I pick it up, it's an interesting, different vibe.
It's like Unity's the cheeseburger, and Rogue is like, you know, like some fries with some chili on them, maybe, like on the side.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I had my ups and downs with checking out Rogue. I think obviously the big thing that they're playing up is, you know, you're a Templar now.
Right.
And that was like one of my questions was like, how long did this take? You know, was it always just like a card that you wanted to play that you knew you were going to do? And I think when they're, you know, maybe moving into this new era, possibly telling a new story with Unity, not only just with the stuff that we do in the past, but, you know, new characters in the present. You know, who are we? Are you going to keep coming up with new gimmicks every time you do a game, or are we actually getting into, you know, kind of a new arc for a new generation? Because the last gen was the birth of Assassin's Creed. We didn't get any games before that.
What did they?
So it is.
Yeah. What did they say to that though?
So it's before Assassin's Creed 3.
Okay.
Haytham was on the boat in the demo that I played. I saw them play something, and then I played a demo. The stuff that I saw was super interesting, and the stuff that I played was Assassin's Creed 4. I was on a boat. They have new weapons. You can, instead of throwing barrels behind, you drop fire. So you lay like a little ring of fire, and so any boats, obviously, they get in there, get, you know, messed up. You have like increased ramming speed now, so you can just like obliterate smaller boats. Just, you know, more firepower instead of just having the cannon on the side of the ship that you charge up every now and then. It's like machine gun style. I mean, everything is like super Templar, and that's actually one thing that I think, you know, sounds gratifying, is that you're a Templar. Like you're friends with the English. So like, unlike Assassin's Creed 4, where like once in a blue moon you'll actually find a pirate somewhere. You got friends all over the place. So like, I think they're definitely trying to up that firepower.
It's clear. It sounds like the boats are going to be like a Star Wars situation, where suddenly all of the pods and vehicles are much better off than the ones we saw later.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Lots better tech. Well, it's on the east coast of the U.S. New York is the big city.
Okay.
There's 3 separate maps, kind of like AC3, where there wasn't, you know, like with AC4. You had the one giant map, but it's sectioned off. And so they had one that I was sailing through that was way up north. So like icebergs. They weren't penguins. I can't remember what he called them. They look like penguins, but they have like weird, you know, fun aquatic, you know, animals in the environment that we didn't have in AC4. But yeah, I was on a boat. I messed up some ships. Reverse boarding now, so boats can sneak up behind you and guys can jump on. Unless you're careful, so you want to stay, you know, like try not to stay too close if you're damaged, or like stay too close to other boats. Even though it was last gen, it still looked great. Again, just, you know, the same thing with Unity. Like there was some, you know, frame rate hiccups here and there, but it's, you know, they still have a ways to go in the game. But there was one point where I crashed into an iceberg and it shattered and made waves, and the boat rocked to the waves of like the cracking ice. He mentioned that even though it was last gen, he said the one benefit was that they were able to develop the game fast. You know, that they had
they had the engine, they had
this stuff, and so when they had ideas like he has an air rifle with a grenade launcher on it, and he has lots of like poison bombs. So he had this one thing that he would send out that would make everybody asleep, but he would drop something that would make noise. He had like a firecracker bomb, so he would drop those, make noise, everybody would go. He'd drop a sleep thing, everybody would fall asleep. The guards that noticed them falling asleep from a distance would show up, and he'd firecracker those guys. So he was just basically standing on the top of the, you know, of the building, and he can like totally clear the crowd. Or again, rush in and
so they brought. So that sounds like the mechanics from Revelations are coming back.
Yeah, like a lot of those, bomb
the smoke
creation
bombs
and stuff.
And the
they
bomb
didn't really
creation.
get into like bomb creation because again, he's a Templar. He doesn't have time
Well,
to create bombs. He just goes and buys them probably.
Yes, he's a Templar, but technically he was an assassin first, which feels like a part of a cop-out. But
they didn't really get into.
But they didn't get into the story.
The story
it sounds
a lot.
Like.
Yeah, it was mostly just kind of like showing off the gameplay. The thing that they showed that I didn't get to play, I think is the most interesting thing. I think is the thing they really need to sell, which is the fact that you are hunting assassins.
Right.
So if you go into an environment, you don't find the guy talking pompously with the rest of his crew around him. That's not the guy you're looking for. Those are the guys you probably have to protect. The guy you're looking for is hiding in the bush over in the corner. So when you again, you kind of approach typical Assassin's Creed environments in a whole new way. We'll see. But there were some guys that he snuck up on assassins that were clearly like, when he comes down this alleyway, I'm totally going to take him out. And he snuck up behind him and killed him. And I'm like, ooh, it feels dirty. At the end, he burns the assassin's flag and puts up the Templar flag. And it's like, no, it feels bad. But in the mission, you had to specifically take out this one master assassin. And it took him a while to get to this guy because every time he'd show up, the guy would call in his friends, just like you could. You had to deal with them or run past the guy. They could trip you up. He could drop smoke grenades that you had a breathing device that could bypass it, but you only had a second to pull it out, like once you actually saw them drop the smoke grenade. Otherwise, you'd get stunned, and they'd get away. And you had a little meter that would kind of tell you where in the environment they were, but you didn't know exactly, like if they were above you or below you or in a building.
So you don't have eagle vision with this guy?
You have like a sense, but it's not full on eagle vision yet.
Interesting. Good. That was the thing I was afraid about. I was like, great, everyone gets eagle vision.
Well, he was an assassin going in, so like you do have that ability, but I don't know. Again, it's built on the same systems that like 2, 3, 4. This kind of evolution as opposed to Unity, which is a completely new thing. But it was fun, for him to be chasing after the assassin would shoot him. And he'd like, ow, I just got shot. And the assassin would duck behind a building. Then he'd run around the side, and the assassin's gone. So it's like, what did he do? Did he run in a bush? Did he jump up? Did he keep running? And so that, whether it's groundbreaking or not, it's something that the franchise has never done before. It was fun to watch. Like it was something that they did sell it. It's like, oh, you're hunting assassins now, and you really were. Like it's fun to not only do that from a story perspective, but to realize all of these gameplay mechanics. That like, yeah, I have a grenade launcher, but these guys have the tools that I used to have, and specialize in those things.
Well, that's actually comforting to hear that the NPCs and the AI that you're up against are gonna be that knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. Like they're gonna hide in the bush and run up a wall and scale a thing. That could be interesting. That could be very interesting.
And shanties are back, so there you go, shanties. Ian, shanties.
The only good part of that.
Ian on the camera, that was his favorite thing. Came out of your bay, and you're like, that's it, AC4, that's why I'm buying, because of shanties. Some are returning, some of the faves, but I guess they will have like an Irish flair, because it's
New York.
Because it's New York, and again, it'll be interesting, didn't see that, but I'm sure that'll be a very interesting environment.
So it's before AC3.
Before AC3, correct. I hope I got that right. That's what they said. Your ship is called the Morgan.
Yeah, I saw that.
And they said even though it's split up into different places, the size is relative to AC4, which was last gen. It was a last gen game that just looked better and performed better on newer consoles. But so yeah, they were. It was fun to get my hands on it. I saw more of it, and I thought they were going to. So there's still lots more stuff that we have to find out. But when again, you said so it's coming out 2 weeks later. When is Megru going to make some time for Rogue?
I mean, you've definitely piqued my interest. I think, I mean, I'm obviously going to play it, but I really do feel like I'm going to play Unity first and then maybe need like a buffer before going back. Because the one thing I have noticed replaying all the games is as much love as I have for them, there is that like, ugh moment when like you're used to having all these elements at your disposal and then you go back a game and then you don't have, calling in assassins or you don't have all these elements that you got so used to playing for, however many hours. So I'm still going to play it. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm more curious now that, you told me what you saw. So I'm not writing it off. I'm not, I'm obviously going to pre-order it. I'm going to play it, but we'll see. We'll see how, it's kind of like going to see Guardians of the Galaxy and then going to Ninja Turtles. It's like, well.
Interesting comparison. I'm going to do both, but, one I'm going to do IMAX, the other one. One thing, I saw some people online comparing it to Revelations, and I think that's interesting because
it sounds very similar.
The Amazing 2 set up what I feel maybe is not the superior Brotherhood, but I loved Brotherhood more than 2 because when you had your buddies, that completely that just made it for me. That was so great. And then Revelations is fun. has some really interesting story elements.
It's
some
very
cutscenes
story-driven.
that will really get you if you've played the game up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've necessarily called them revelations, but definitely dug deeper into the story than I was expecting. Definitely tugged at my heartstrings a little
Mm-hmm.
more than I was expecting. And was an interesting spin on the Ezio story that they had told up to that point. However possibly ungratifying that ending was. I get the feeling that maybe this is kind of what we're going to get, this conclusion to the old gen. This like, let's really dig in that knife and twist it by you seeing what are these Templars up to? What are their ambitions? What are we going to learn about how awful, not only they are, but how awful Haytham is, and how, like all of these things that were set up. It seems like as a developer, as somebody who's potentially been with the franchise for a long time, that's got to be a lot of fun to just really mess around with the story.
It should be a lot of fun to definitely to play with the story, but the Templars, the trend that they've been going in is the Templars. The line is a lot grayer. They made that very clear in Black Flag. If you know Haytham's full backstory, he's not even a huge fan of Templars either. So it's just sort of like...
I forgot to mention that specifically, you don't get penalized for a lot of stuff that you would in typical Assassin's games. So like
Right.
if you kill 5 people to try to get that guy, whoops.
Ah.
Sorry
I mean,
for
that's
those
true.
people.
I mean,
you don't want to get caught by the authorities, but like no one's gonna. If it's in a back alley, like whatever, dude.
I think
you're a Templar.
it'll be interesting if they end up letting Rogue really be going back to the way we used to perceive Templars from AC1 and everything, of like just going through the most horrible means to an end. Then I think that'll be good but then it'll be very interesting coming off of Unity, where it looks like it's called Unity because we're working together with them. Who knows? So it'll be interesting to see where they land. At this point, it's kind of like, where are you going with this?
Tugs all around.
Yeah.
Why can't we be friends?
Yeah, if Rogue is going to be...
It's a new gen, let's be friends.
I mean, if it's going to be story-driven, great. I think we need that closure, especially on the last gen, especially with that storyline. And at this point, let's see what's going on in the present day. That's all I want to know from here on out.
Well, no matter when you play it, I'm sure you'll have opinions about Rogue, so hopefully we'll have you back to talk about those.
All right,
Thank
we'll
you,
see.
Meg.
Yeah, thanks.
And I am a hunter.